G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Another game probably let slip by the Crows, but it was a decent effort. So without any further ado, let's talk about it. Let's get straight into it. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to round 10 of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by Crowcast, of course. Disappointing result, but nonetheless, we put up a fair show, I guess we can say. Talking to me tonight all about it is Macca. How you going, Mac?
Yeah, looking forward to it. We didn't win, but I thought we put up a pretty good showing, and if the selectors had a little bit more forethought, we might have won the game.
Mate, we will talk about that because that's a bit of a bugbear of mine as well. We have to say good evening and welcome to everyone who's joined us in Discord and also on YouTube. Don't forget, if you want to have a chat about what we're talking about the match or anything else to do with the Crows at all, stick your hand up in the virtual stage there and we will certainly get you on board. But in the meantime, you can chat away by text on Discord and or YouTube. Mate, before we get into our analysis of the Crows match, we've listened to the punters, mate, and unfortunately, we're going to have a cut down version of Macca's roundup. So hang on a sec, we'll just get into this. And look at this. This is we've got it all crammed on one page now. So let's. I'll just run through the scores real quick. Carlton 15-point winners over Sydney. Geelong 35-point winners over the Power. The Dogs 19-point winners over the Suns. North got done by the D's by 47 points. The Tigers getting up by 32 points in the Dreamtime match over Essendon. The Giants 52-point winners over the Eagles. The Hawks in a great win for them, 5 points over the Lions. And the Dockers got done, probably their first form dip of the season, by 36 points by Collingwood. Mac, we'll have a quick 1 minute conversation about the weekend results. I guess the Dockers and the Lions were the two surprising ones, weren't they?
Dockers played Collingwood in the conditions were pretty poor and they were wet. And if you look back on their form, they're not a wet form team. They've been beaten in the wet before, and Collingwood made them look second rate actually on their own home ground. So no. We thought they were the real deal, but I'm starting to have my doubts about them because certainly in a wet game they don't go too good.
Oh, I wouldn't get off them just yet. Collingwood actually, they go right in Western Australia. Collingwood, and the Dockers were probably due for enough night. So anyway, apart from that, the results were fairly predictable. I thought Carlton's win was pretty good on the weekend and sees them entrenched in the top four. Macca, as we look at the ladder, we got Melbourne on top with 40 points, the Lions and Carlton on 32, Fremantle and St Kilda on 28. Not convinced about St Kilda yet. Geelong, Sydney and Richmond in the 8 on 24 points, and then we've got the Bulldogs and Collingwood outside the 8 on 20. Port on 16 along with the Suns and Hawthorn. The Giants and Adelaide on 12, Essendon on 8, North and the Eagles on 4 points. I guess, fairly predictable. You'd think that the Bulldogs are the danger for those in the 8s. I'm not actually convinced about St Kilda yet. Mac, are you?
No, look that they haven't got Steele, and I don't know when Steele will be available again. And I mean, Brad Crouch played a very good game. Credit where
He
it's
did.
due, but they didn't look as dangerous as they do when Steele plays. And no, they're not up with Melbourne. Put it that way. They're not up with Melbourne.
No, I don't. Well, no, definitely not up with Melbourne. But whether they're top four material, like some of the commentators are talking about, I'm not quite sure. Their percentage is still fairly low, only 118. And whilst that's not the be all and end all, it's still a bit of an indicator, in my opinion.
On the other hand, Carlton team, they're starting to look like the real deal.
I really like Carlton's game. I just feel like they're. That's probably the toughest win they've had. Sydney did put up a good show. Carlton got a fair ride from the umpires, though.
Yeah, they did. But they also had Charlie Curnow. I thought he was outstanding.
Yeah, they got a ripper right from the umps, but never mind. So overall, I think the results were quite predictable, even though my footy tipping didn't reflect that. But I'm so far down the tube, Mac, that I'm trying to go for roughies already. How you go? Are you in fantasy football this year?
In fantasy football, yeah, top of the ladder, mate.
Wow, you're just a machine you're just a machine when it comes to that.
Don't forget and I just want to make two comments about the results. One is that GWS play this West Coast. GWS had 11 of their best players out, and West Coast had 11 of their best players out. That's what they said on paper, and it shows how far down West Coast are. So I think they're right down the bottom, and I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to stick with Simpson and rebuild, or are they going to get somebody else in? Because West Coast are nowhere.
Look, I reckon that Simpson would probably rather go through a rebuild at his home club, mate, and I wouldn't mind betting that he's back at North next year. I think the noble experiment at North Melbourne has probably worn off.
Yep.
And I think West Coast will replace. Well, I think West Coast would quite happily hang on to Simpson if he was still wanted to be there. I just have a feeling that North will get him back, and West Coast will be looking for a new coach.
Well, you've covered the other club I was going to mention, North Melbourne, and they can't stick with Noble, can they?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I don't think he's really engaged with the players. He doesn't look like he's the sort of coach that will rebuild a team. He doesn't seem to be engaged with the young lads. Some of their selection is a bit weird. The fact that Will Phillips can't get a run, he's doing okay in the twos from all reports, but he can't get a run, those sort of things. I don't know. I don't feel like Noble's got that club. I don't think they've got. I don't think he's got their confidence, to be honest.
And Truck's under pressure as well.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what's going on there? Look, I mean, Rutten was an assistant coach there for 2 years, 3 years. He was there under Worsfold, and you wouldn't have thought they would have appointed him had he not had a good relationship with the players, Macca. So I don't know what's gone south there, but they're certainly not playing. I mean, they played with a little bit more pride and passion against Richmond, but I think their list is just lacking terribly.
It is.
So, I think the biggest thing for Rutten is whether he survives the Melbourne media scrutiny. I think the knives are out for him.
Yeah, being a South Australian too doesn't help him. They love to attack him, and he will get less tolerance than a Victorian would.
I agree. So no announcement yet, of course, on the Giants job. Clarkson has ruled himself out of that job, though. That's an interesting one for mine. Says that he's committed to the Tasmanian project. That's significant, if you ask me.
That's ridiculous.
Well, why is it ridiculous?
Well, the Tasmanian project, that's not going to happen for another 3 or 4 years.
Well, I mean that's when the report that I read said that he'd ruled himself out of the GWS job, and at this stage he was still focused on the Tasmanian proposal. Now, I don't think that necessarily means he's going to hang out to coach them, but I think he's working with the Tasmanian consortium, and at the moment, I think he's well, he's got income obviously from that, and I don't obviously he doesn't want to go to GWS. Now, whether the AFL knew about that already before Cameron fell in his sword, I'm not sure, but I think the AFL would be disappointed that Clarkson doesn't want to go up there.
I agree.
Probably opens the frame for James Hird. I wouldn't mind betting that James Hird ends up coaching GWS.
Well, he's certainly going to lift his stock somewhere, isn't it? There's going to be opportunities for it.
Well, the thing about James Hird coaching in Sydney is that he's not in the Melbourne Fishbowl, so he gets out of a little bit of scrutiny from the Melbourne media. Secondly, he's been brought on there as a consultant, and he's certainly fairly hands-on by all reports since Cameron left. Obviously, he's working with teammates McVeigh and who's the other one they've got up there?
Yeah, I know who you mean. But
I can't think of
he's
his
another
name.
former teammate of his.
That's right. So it's almost an Essendon panel up there at the moment. And obviously, Sheedy has a lot to do with GWS on their formation and probably still has a fair bit of connection there. So my money's on Hird for GWS.
I will tell, mate.
Yes, definitely. Which leaves the Port Adelaide position, which has gone a bit quiet since Port have started winning games, albeit not against teams that are in contention, and lost fairly comfortably to Geelong on the weekend. I think that will start rearing its head again when Port start losing to more top 8 teams, as I think they will. Do you think Clarkson has got a connection strong enough at Port Adelaide that they would get him back there?
I think they'd give Kenny the boot at 100 mile an hour and get Clarkson if they could. The problem they have got is that because they're one of the clubs that are on lifeline to the AFL, Kenny's got a year to go, and the AFL aren't going to give them another 800,000 to throw away.
No, and just by extension, do Port have the dollars to be able to pay Clarkson? Because that comes under their soft cap. I don't know whether they got the money, to be honest.
No, they haven't.
Which begs the question: where's Clarko going?
I'm amazed about the GWS. I haven't read that anywhere, Feen. I just thought Giants straight away.
No, ruled himself out.
Well, it may be that the boy who eats too much up north, he may get the boot, and Stewie Jube, although Gold Coast aren't travelling too badly at the moment, but whether they want Clarkson up there, maybe as somebody who can hold the players up there, who knows?
Who knows? Anyway, lots of speculation, lots going on in the footy world at the moment, and what we're focusing on right now, Macca, is the Adelaide Crows, and the Crows that went down to the Saints 9-15-69. Terrible kicking, Macca, to St Kilda 14-6-90. So 21 points in the end after leading at three-quarter time. What were your initial thoughts, mate?
Oh, I just thought we lost a game we should have won, and there were two factors involved in that, and we have actually mentioned them both indirectly along the line. Firstly, just the back line. I mean, when you see what they could have got up forward, they've got King, they've got Membry, and they've got the changing rucks, Ryder, and the other guy. They're both
Marshall.
very, very good, really good. There's 4 tools that can kick goals. In fact, they all did. And between them, I think they got something like about nine goals, 10 goals between them.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got poor old Murray up there and Duday. Talk about being undersized. Absolutely ludicrous. It's just ludicrous. And in spite of that, except for the last 5 minutes of the game, we were leading, and we should have led by a lot more because it come back to the kicking for goal. And I'm very, very angry about the way players these days kick for goal. This business of running in and flicking the ball around in your hand when you run on the way when you're running in. The guys that kick straight, they actually hold the ball, get it in the right position to drop for the drop, and they run in and they run straight at the goal and they kick straight through it. And it makes me so angry with some of the efforts the way they do it. It's obviously they haven't been taught when they're young to do it properly, and then they've got bad habits ingrained in them. But as I understand it, teams don't spend very much time practicing kicking for goal, and yet it's one of the most important factors in the game.
How often do we say bad kicking is bad football, and yet coaches don't spend anywhere near enough time, or clubs don't spend anywhere near enough time coaching it? I had the pleasure of going down to Brighton today and stuffing my face full of food, and that scuppered some plans that I had of going across the road to Scotch Oval and putting markers down at all the set shots that we missed, Macca, and having a shot myself, because I reckon I could have got 70% of the ones that we missed.
And I reckon, well, you could have, mate.
Yep. Look, I spotted something with Ned McHenry, and I hate to be sizist. And Matt, I might make a video. It's going to be a nice couple of days over the next couple of days, so I might shoot down there after work and have a kick. There's a bit of footy going on Scotch at the moment, so anyway, we'll see. Ned McHenry, and I'm not being sizist, but I've seen what he does. He doesn't kick over the mark, man on the mark, Macca. He kicks around the man on the mark. And what he does, because he kicks around the man on the mark, he pushes everything to the right or hooks it to the left in trying to correct it. That shot that he missed for goal, it's exactly what he did. He didn't kick over the man on the mark. He did none of them actually. The only one that missed that I thought was good technique and just bad luck was Saligo's first shot. Where he actually ran in nice and straight, and it just it just faded off and hit the post. But most of those shots for goals
faded so much in the last.
Yeah, it was very odd. Tex's technique has gotten lazy. There's just so many examples of poor kicking technique, and I'll tell you what it is, Mac. There's a big difference between, and you would know this, there's a big difference in my opinion between kicking for goal on the run, which is one technique, and kicking from goal from a standing start. They're two completely different techniques, and I've noticed a lot of our players kick the ball from a standing start using a similar technique to what they would use if they were having a running shot for goal.
I'll just cast my mind back. There are slight differences in it, in the sense, but it should always be running straight at goal. In my opinion, you mentioned Ned McHenry.
Yeah.
He's guilty of another thing. He's been one of those that flicks the ball around in his hands as he's running in.
Yep.
And then he runs to the side, and then he's hooking the ball, and he's got about 3 reasons why he won't kick the goal.
Yeah.
Whereas, look, if he just went back and just held the ball, got himself set to run in, he would have kicked it.
Look, I always take it back to a golf swing, because it's exactly the same principle. You've got to have a repeatable action, and you look at some of the best players in golf, and not all of them have got fantastic swings, Macca, but what they can do is repeat it time after time after time, and the best ones can repeat it under pressure, right? So it doesn't matter what your technique is necessarily, but it's got to be ingrained. I can't remember the golfer's name that won some majors back in the 90s. Oh, geez, what's his name? I'm getting old, mate. I'm bloody losing my memory. But he had a massive little loop at the top of his backswing, and even so, he was able to just laser the ball into greens. And all the best golfers, that's why they spend hours and hours and hours on the practice range. And the famous quote from Lee Trevino, the difference between an amateur golfer and a pro golfer is 1,000 balls a day. And what you said before is spot on. The object of the game of AFL football is to kick more goals than your opposition. And intrinsic in that goal is to actually be able to kick goals. So you would think that they would spend time honing their skill, honing their technique, particularly with set shots. I can forgive running shots because that's a lot of factors involved there. But a set shot, you should kick like within the 45 degree V, Mac. You should kick 90%, in my opinion, as a professional footballer.
The other thing is also the mindset. When I played, I was a very greedy little bastard, and and I loved kicking a goal, mate. So if I was having a shot for goal, my mindset was, "You beauty, I've got a goal here." Some of these guys out there, you can see they're absolutely shitting themselves that they're having a shot for goal.
Yep.
It just has to be. You have to change the mindset that they believe they will kick the goal. They want to kick the goal.
Yep. Well, I think this is it. And Jim Furyk was the one. Thanks, Surfs Oz in the chat. Jim Furyk was the golfer I was trying to remember. Like if you've got say you're down by a goal and you get a mark in the forward line. That's your opportunity to win the game for your team, or whatever. If you need to kick a goal, that's your opportunity and you should be hungry for that. You should be grasping that opportunity. But as you rightly point out, there are so many players that look completely fearful of that opportunity. They don't want that opportunity. Rochelle is an exception. Loves the ball in his hands in big moments by the looks of it, the young fella, and kicked a beauty that kept us in it as well before he went off with a corky. But so many players seem to be fearful of that opportunity. They don't see it as an opportunity to finish off the hard work of their teammates. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And somebody quite right in the chat mentions Dawson. You look at Dawson, whether he takes a mark in defence, he sizes up what's going on and then delivers the ball beautifully. When he's having a shot for goal, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, there's no running to the side or anything like that. He just does exactly the same. Sizes it up and just puts it through. And it's all about mindset. That is just mindset.
Yeah. I just want to focus quickly. You touched on selection before. I want to look at selection a little bit more closely. I just thought it was, again, incredibly arrogant by Adelaide to not cover off their tools, like you mentioned. We obviously miss Geordie Butts, but it's not as if we haven't got other options. So the first thing to talk about is Billy Frampton, right? Now, Billy Frampton is hopeless in the air, right? And got dropped because of his lack of competitiveness in the air. So it seems to me that Nick Murray got dropped for Billy, and now Nick's back in. Billy dropped out. Is that it for Billy Frampton? Because if he wasn't going to get selected for this game, he's not going to get selected, right?
Common sense says that. I'm not sure they are operating off of common sense, but if they were ever going to give Frampton another chance, it had to be this particular game, just out of sheer desperation.
Yeah. So if you're not going to give Frampton a run, then the next logical option is you go with a rookie, right? Fisher Mackesy, who we drafted as a first-round selection as a defender, and he hasn't been going great, and he's been playing a little bit up forward in the twos and all the rest of it. However, he's been on our list now for, 2 years or whatever. He's drafted as a defender. He doesn't have to take Max King per se, but by having 1-2 short in defence, we just put too much pressure on Murray. So does that mean that Fisher Macca is out in terms of selection?
All I can say, it must be one of the worst pick sixes in the world. If in this situation you've got this bloke 2.5 years down the track and he's not good enough to be in the side, all I can say is it's a pretty poor situation, isn't it?
Well, we're prepared to pick Riley Thilthorpe, so why aren't we prepared to pick Fisher Macca under those circumstances? The next one that I would say, if you're not going to pick Billy, and if you're not going to pick Macca, and conversations about their status aside, surely to God, you look at the makeup of the St Kilda team, and as you rightly point out, they had Ryder and Marshall in the rucks. They had Max King up forward. It's a couple of strong markers too, Mason Wood, Tim Membry.
Yep.
Four
of them.
So surely, Macca, you think, all right, how are we going to counter this? And we saw back in the day that Malcolm Blight was quite prepared to play David Pittman as a centre-half back role player against blokes like Stuart Lowe, remember?
Yep.
Whenever we played St Kilda and we were playing against any team that had that big centre-half forward type, we played Pittman. So why, even though Riley O'Brien is on the nose, why didn't we pick Riley O'Brien and stick him in defence? He's the only player on our list that can match size and height with Max King. Why don't we just stick him there?
Look, it would be a revolutionary type of pick, but I think it is a lot better than what we did, Fee, because at least there would be a tall body. He's not all that nimble, but then when you're in the back lines, most of the time you're running straight at it. So I tend to agree with you. I think that would have been a very good move. It would certainly be better than what we did.
At the very least, it would have muscled up Max King, right? Because what was happening is that Murray, in order to actually try to combat King, he had to get a running jump. So whenever Max King was on the move, Murray was no hope, because the only hope he had was when Max King was basically parked under the ball stationary. As soon as Max King was on the move to any degree, Murray was out of the contest, and unless we had a third man up, we couldn't kill the contest. At least having Riley O'Brien back there, who could have also had a bit of a run in the ruck, and we could, give us a little bit of versatility and all the rest of it. If we had Riley there, he would have been able to muscle up a little bit on Max King and allow then Murray to come off the player that he was on as a third man up to kill those contests. I just think it was extremely conservative selection to not look at that situation and pick a horses for courses side, Mac. I really thought I was very disappointed by that.
Well, you have to condemn either the coaches or the selection committee or somebody if we can't rustle up another tall bloke to play there, whether it be O'Brien, whether it be Worrell, whether it be Fisher, whether it be Frampton. Are we saying that we've picked that badly that we can't put another player there? And by the way they selected the team, that's what they said.
That's the thing. I mean, Frampton's got the height. Macca more or less got the height, probably not quite got the height, but Riley O'Brien definitely had the height. Riley O'Brien can compete in the air. All we needed is to actually make Max King work for his marks. Having poor old Nick Murray on Max King would have been licking his chops. And the other thing was, and it was noticeable, and I was going to put some video together, but as I said, I was too busy scoffing my face down at Brighton today. There were more than one occasion, and the one thing that we did lack from Kieran Strawn is his inability to drop back into defence. And the couple of times that Strawny did drop back into defence, the only bloke that Strawn should have been worried about when he was in defence was Max King. And yet there are a few occasions, the one where Max King came from the pocket and took that mark, Kieran Strawn was 10 metres in front of the goal square, basically in no man's land. Now, Kieran Strawn should have been back in that situation. He had enough time to work back in that situation to basically double-team Max King. They weren't going to go anywhere else. And yet Strawny didn't position himself well. Now, to me, that's bad coaching, because Strawn is in his 5th game. He needs direction. And to my way of thinking, that's Van Berlo has done Strawn a disservice by not saying, whenever you're in a defensive situation, you've got to double team Max King. To me, that was the obvious one. If you're going to play the defensive setup that you had, you've got to basically use Kieran Strawn as the 7th defender, and we didn't do that.
That's unarguable, Ian. Exactly right.
People in the chat saying he was exhausted. He wasn't. He was out of position. You go and have a look at that mark that Max King took, running from the forward pocket, which was a set play, right? And then you have a look at where number 45 was, and I'm telling you right now, he was 10 metres in front of the goal square. He was out of position. He was not played in the right position. To me, Kieran Strawn was hung out to dry, because he was up against two very good ruckmen, one in particular, Paddy Ryder, who's been just tearing it up this year. Rowan Marshall isn't any slouch, so he's already up against it. Poor old Riley Thilthorpe, just no match, and I'll talk about Riley in a minute. Just no match, so it was only giving a very short chop out to Strawny. And then also, we're expecting him to do defensive work. I think it was very, very poor of Adelaide's selection panel not to pick Riley O'Brien. Very poor.
Well, nobody's going to argue with the fact that there should have been another tall in defence, whether it be O'Brien or whether it be somebody else. You're saying it's O'Brien, and I wouldn't have argued with you if it had been him. I wouldn't have argued if it had been Frampton, but I was definitely arguing that they was one bloody short there for certain, at least.
Yeah. J. Crow, yes, we would be talking about this if we'd have kicked straight or Max King hadn't kicked straight, because it was a glaring issue. The other glaring issue that we had that wasn't so much selection, Macca, but I felt it was gameplay, was we let Brad Hill run around like an unregistered dog for the better half of the second half. And what Nick seemed to be content to do was to make it a shootout between Geordie Dawson at one end and Brad Hill at the other. And when you've got a situation where your forward line, where your defenders are outgunned in terms of height, the last thing you want to do is make it a shootout from rebounding half-backs, in my opinion.
Well, that's exactly what it was. Hill was more damaging in the sense that he's got extreme pace, so that when he gets it, he doesn't just deliver it from where he gets the ball. He generally gains about another 20, 30 metres and then delivers the ball. So he really just slaughtered us. And, I would have been much happier to see us sacrifice a forward and just let him just try and negate Hill as much as possible.
Well, again, it was a matter of working out where St Kilda were getting their drive from. And we'll have a look at a few little stats, but I'll have a look at Brad Hill's score involvements while we're just talking about this. But, pardon me, the simple fact is that we were never going to win that shootout. Dawson was playing deeper because he was forced to, because the entries from St Kilda were going in deeper into their forward 50. So Geordie was having to play deeper. Brad Hill was playing across centre half back, basically. And he was just being able to, get the ball at will off half back, but more effective, like you said, Mac, at launching scoring opportunities. Brad Hill from half back had 7 score involvements. Where was his metres gained? 586 metres gained off halfback there. 20 kicks, 111 score involvements. How many scoring chains did he start? Let's have a look. I can't find it. Just it's off the top of my head. There is a stat here for score launches. Where are we? SL. Where are you, Bradley? No, I can't find it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just felt again it was conservative coaching by Nix that he just allowed that situation to develop, and when we were obviously outmatched up forward, and we're like in our defensive 50 in St Kilda's forward line, and we were also having a bad kicking night, and everyone knows that a bad kicking night, once someone starts kicking badly, it's contagious. You don't often recover from a bad kicking start, do you, Mac?
No. It actually makes the whole side feel a bit of a downer.
Exactly, and a little bit tense. So once you know that you're on a bad accuracy night, the last thing you want to do is have a shootout. So the last thing you want to do.
I thought that in the early part of the game it wasn't quite played that way. I thought it got more as we got more tired as the game went on. That's when it became more like that.
Yeah. After half time, absolutely, Macca. That's 100% right there. It just seemed to me that if all he had to do was to stick McHenry or someone like that on Hill, just to make him rush his kicks, just to make his rebound less or more pressured, just to give them less of an avenue, and to make them think about what they were going to do next. Because if we'd have made Brad Hill accountable, they didn't have a lot else in terms of defensive rebound, in my opinion.
The other person that did give us a bit of strife was Brad Crouch. He had a good game.
Yeah, it was funny with Crouchy. I actually, I know he got a bit of the ball and he kicked that nice goal in the clutch there. But I don't know. I thought he had one of his typical high disposal, low impact sort of games. But I wasn't really watching, to be honest.
I would have liked to have had him in our side. He would have stood out in our side.
Oh, I don't know about that. Don't know. Anyway, so for me, they were the two things, Mac. Poor selection and just a game plan that so to tie the two things together, the game plan to me didn't seem to fit the team that we selected, if that makes sense.
Well, there is one factor, I suppose, in the sense that we were playing the game style that was wanted in the first half.
In the first half, yeah.
And as the game goes on, because it's very intense, because we try to make it into a scramble, into a fight. And when it's like that, we do very well. But the minute we become a little bit weak, that's when the opposition break away from us. And that's what happened in the last 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at the rebound 50 stat because St Kilda, in the halfway through the second quarter, they were 19 to about 8 or 9 or something like that in their favour. So they were getting a lot of bounce off halfback out of our defence. But what we were able to do, if you have a look at the inside 50 stat, and I'm not putting these up because I know people hate my graphs, so I'm just having a look. We had far more inside 50s during that period. We were at halfway through the second quarter, we were miles in front, and I think we were 11-3 at one stage in the first quarter. So their rebound 50s were miles up, but we were getting a lot of repeat entries. What we weren't doing was converting them on the scoreboard. But in the second half, if you look at the inside 50 count, particularly halfway through the third till halfway through the fourth, St Kilda's inside 50s just shot up, and that's where their rebound 50s stayed fairly constant, but our inside 50s dropped away. So we were getting far less repeat opportunities. It was bouncing out of our forward 50 rather than us being able to lock the ball in and getting repeat entries. So that's between the two halves, that was the difference. And that's where I thought, Macca, that they should have locked Brad Hill up so that we could actually get some more, be able to get more field position, because I felt like the game opened up a little bit after half-time and we weren't really so intent on maintaining field position. We were more content to let the ball bounce between the two arcs. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, in the first quarter, we were very intent on locking the ball in our forward line, but we just wasted the opportunities by kicking points. And I can't remember, one of the commentators made a comment that could come back to bite them later, and which it did, of course, because we'd had I think it was 12 forward entries into 3 at one stage.
Yeah, it was 11-3.
Yeah, the scores were around about level.
Yeah, at the 12-minute mark of the first quarter, it was 12-3. And at one stage, it was, like, even in the second quarter, it was 17-8, 18-8, 18-9, and it was really only halfway through that second quarter where... sorry, I'm looking at rebound 50s. Let me try that again. It was halfway through the second quarter where St Kilda started to pick up their inside 50 count. But St Kilda only had 10 inside 50s at the 10-minute mark of the second quarter, and we had 20. So we had tons of the ball, but our delivery into forward 50 was shocking. I felt our movement into forward 50 was pretty average, Mac. And we just don't...
There were some good moments, but there were a lot of very poor moments where we got absolutely wasted when we've kicked blindly, or we've kicked to one man against 3 rather than somebody loose out on their own. There's quite a few moments where we could have actually made something of it. We just kicked into a nest of their players.
Here's the thing. There's a couple of our players, Jimmy Rowe in particular, very good at spotting up targets that are leading up to them, right? But what our midfielders don't seem to be able to do is, and Brodie Smith is one, Ben Keys is a shocker, and there's a couple of others. They don't seem to be able to pick where to put the ball in contested situations to advantage our forward. So not every kick is going to be a leader, right? So, but what we tend to do is put it on people's heads, right? Now, unless you're Max King, you're not going to win very many of those contests. So what you need to do as a midfielder, you've got to think, all right, where's the fat side of the ground? Where's our crummer? What side is my forward on? And kick it to that side. Instead of just dumping it on his head or wrong footing him or whatever. So many times we just blindly pop the ball 20 metres out and our forward wasn't in position. Now, some of that might have been because the forward wasn't playing in front or got blocked or was out-muscled. But to me, a lot of the time, when we went forward to contested situations, we weren't smart about where we actually put the ball.
Well, on top of that too, one of my real complaints about any footy team is when they gather in clumps rather than spread to give the alternative to the bloke that's actually got the ball. And so many times we would actually, even from the middle of the ground, rather than looking to the sides, or we would just do the bomb to the clump at the because there was nobody actually leading to the sides.
Yeah, that's right. So, I felt like our forward 50 entries, particularly as the game wore on, were a bit diabolical. I don't know. I don't know what it is, Mac, but I've been banging on about forward 50 entries for a long time, and when we get it right, when we get the ball into the right player's hands, we look very good. And when Tex is on top of his game and he's leading up powerfully, we can hit him on the boob. That's fine. But in these situations where we're hoofing the ball long, and often we're doing that from a standing start. So it's where we've got a mark or a free kick 65, 70 metres out of goal, so 20 metres from the 50-metre arc. How many times do you see us look sideways, and then, stuff it, and we just bomb it. Just bomb it and hope for the best. We never, ever think about going around the arc and trying to spread the defence. That's what we don't do. We don't spread the defence by moving the ball from one lane to the other. And anyone who I coached in junior footy, and you would have been the same, Mac, 3 lanes in footy, left wing, right wing, and through the middle. Now, you've got to be able to change lanes in order to separate the opposition. And we don't do that. We just go down the line and we stop, and invariably we bomb the ball to the top of the square, and we're outgunned. We don't have a pack marking forward. That is not a strategy that is ever, ever, ever going to work for us unless McAdam sits on someone's head.
Yeah, Phil thought they actually won this week, which he juggled about 2 or 3 times, but he did take it. Yeah. But the odds of the return to what we're doing is very, very poor.
Yeah, and this is where I'm really kind of disappointed with our coaching staff, because I don't feel like they're actually. I think they're applying a lot of methodology that they've learned over the course of their careers and their coaching careers and all the rest of it, and Nick's has got his key indicators like ground ball gets and contested ball and all that sort of stuff, and all that is great, and our team by and large, apart from small periods because they're still quite young, they are competing well. The effort is there, the tackling is good, the running is good, the defensive running from our midfield has been much better since we got rid of Sloan and Crouch out of that mix. So there's a lot of things that they're doing right in terms of what I think our coaches are looking for with their key indicators. But what I think is lacking is our coaches aren't actually thinking logically about the team that they're putting out on the park and what that team is capable of and not capable of. There's no way that we should ever, ever, ever be kicking the ball on someone's head in the forward 50. We should just refuse to do that. And I'll tell you who used to refuse to do that was Hawthorn. Back in the day, Macca, they would refuse to give up the ball until they had a leading option. Very, very rarely would they put the ball on someone's head in their heyday.
Yes, they've got the runs on the board to prove what they were doing was correct as well. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with Nick's game plan, but I don't think we've got all the players in the right spots to be able to achieve it, and therefore that sort of makes the game plan a little bit redundant.
I feel I differ a little bit, Mac, because I'm starting to be concerned that what Nick's is developing is a workmanlike team. And there's nothing wrong with that. Effort is great, but would you have ever said that Hawthorn was the hardest tackling team, or got the most ground ball, or that's were the best in contested situations? I wouldn't have said that about Hawthorn in their heyday. I wouldn't have said that about Geelong in their heyday. I wouldn't even really say that about Melbourne right now. Melbourne have some bullish midfielders, but I wouldn't call them a rabid tackling team. I don't actually think it's the number one thing. I think you have to get your fair share of contested ball and ground ball, but I don't actually think it's the number one thing that wins games of football.
Yeah, but if we put in the right priority, if you've actually got the ball, you don't have to tackle. And the really good sides like Melbourne and Hawthorn, when they were at their peak, they are the ones that got the majority of the ball. Therefore, they're not really a tackling team. On the other hand, if you're like us, near the bottom of the ladder, the opposition have the ball quite a lot. So you have to be a tackling team, Feen.
Macca, we had the ball just as much as St Kilda, and I'll just chuck up the team stats. 336 to 350 in terms of disposals. 211 kicks to 208, 125 handballs, 142, 47 to 45 inside 50s. We had the ball as much as St Kilda. The key is what you do with it. And the good teams like Hawthorn back in the day, etc., they did not give up the ball easily. They did not kick to one-on-one, to contested situations easily. Clarkson hated contested situations. So they would chip through. They didn't even use handball as much as some teams. Geelong were probably more a handball team. But Hawthorn would chip, and they would go across the ground, and they would spread defenders, and then they would hit up a target, or at least go to a one-on-one contest rather than the pack. They would never actually do that.
We're really saying the same thing, Pete. Is the fact is that you're saying they use the ball better, and I agree with you. And if you really use the ball better, you've got possession in terms of time more than they have, and therefore you've got the ability to ultimately get a good disposal away. Therefore, you don't have to tackle as much.
I'm not just talking about tackling though, Mackie. You're focusing on tackling. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like when I said Hawthorn, they weren't a hard contested ball team. They won their fair share of contested ball, but they weren't renowned as a contested ball team. But what Hawthorn did was hung on to the ball until they got the right option. You wouldn't see Hawthorn too often bombing it into bloody 30 metres out from goal from a standing start 70 metres away. They just wouldn't do that. They would hold onto the ball and they would crisscross the ground until they had the defence spread, and then they would, at the very least, be able to kick to a one-on-one situation or a leading target. And the other thing that does is it creates space in the forward line for your crumbers to go to work. And they had Puopolo and Rioli, obviously, that could go to work, and Luke Proust. You know, we don't do that. We are not patient when it comes to going forward. We do not hang on to the ball. We are prepared to kick to a contested situation from 70 metres out from goal. And there's too many variables in that, Macca. And I think it's poor coaching to do that.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. You're saying we take too much risk when we dispose of the ball, as opposed to making sure we get value for our kick.
Absolutely. Yep. And the problem with it is that because and this is just my opinion, I could be 100% wrong, but my opinion is that because we're prepared to kick to contested situations up forward, our players, that's part of the reason why we get that congestion in packed situations, Mac, where all our marking players basically, and we used to see it with Himmelberg and Fogarty and all that, they'd converge to the one place, right? So we don't have three options. We don't have Thilthorpe going one way, Tex going another way, and Fogarty going another way. They're all converging to where they know the ball was going to go, which is the top of the square.
That's also, you're quite right, but it also is related to the quality of the players ahead as well. I mean, you take Fogarty, he was just a big, if he was about 1/10 the size, he'd be just another point post or goal post. He just doesn't move around very much.
Well, I disagree with that.
I thought he played poorly, Feen.
Well, did you go back and watch his first quarter? He didn't play poorly. And he also only had 70% time on ground. He spent a lot of the time on the bench. And I noticed something, and a couple of other people on Big Footy noticed it too. He had that little purple patch just before three-quarter time, where he took 2 marks in a row and all the rest of it and looked like he was up and about.
I remember that. Yep.
He spent the first 10 minutes of the final quarter on the bench. Now, as a coach who should have a feel for the game, Fogarty had finally got free and had taken a couple of marks late, was up and about, obviously fired up. Why would you then sit him on the bench for the first 10 minutes of the last quarter?
Well, I understand what you're saying. I hadn't picked up that he had spent so much time on the bench, but overall in a game of footy, he doesn't do a real lot though, Pete.
Why would you sit him? Answer my question. Why would you sit him on the bench for the first 10 minutes of the last quarter when he finished the third quarter the way he did?
Well, I wouldn't have.
And yet you keep Tex on when he gives away a stupid free kick, and is obviously not 100%. And if you look at Fogarty's first quarter, he took a couple of really nice grabs leading up. They were playing him very high. If you look at his heat map in the first half, a lot of his possessions were high up the ground, even up to half back. He wasn't playing in the forward 50, Mac. He was running up. He was a lead up target. And I think, and you know me, I'm not a big Darcy fan. I think he can be lazy at times. But there are a few times where he got overlooked. I don't think his teammates trust him at the moment, or they're not looking for him. There's a couple of times where he led out from deep forward and was ignored. And to me, Fogarty looked like by the end of the game he was extremely frustrated, and I could kind of understand why.
Well, just going on what you said then, he probably had good reason to. My question to you is he ever going to be a key forward for us?
No, he won't be a key forward for us. He could be a lead-up forward. He could play high half forward. But at the moment, see, this is the issue that we've got, Mac. We're playing a couple of little midgets at high half forward. We're playing Lockie Murphy and we're playing Ned McHenry in those roles. Yeah. The balance of our team is all wrong. I personally think Darcy Fogarty is the sort of player that can run up and down a wing, basically from half forward. Okay, that he's not, and every now and again he'll kick you a long goal, and every now and again you can rotate him deep, and he'll take a lead out of the square. He's not a midfielder, as Sursorts puts out, but I'm not advocating for him to be a midfielder. But I think Fogarty has a good pair of hands when he's running at the ball, and I just don't think he's good in the circumstance where we're bombing the ball in long. That's not his go. So if I was playing Fogarty, I would play him high up the ground. But then we've already got two blokes that play high up the ground, McHenry and Murphy.
Well, if we had players that could honour a lead and bang it on the chest every time, Fogarty could be a weapon. But unfortunately, we don't have those players that give him that type of service anyhow.
Well, Macca, I disagree. I think we've got enough players that have enough skill to be able to do that. But I think our balance is all wrong. I think you can't. I've said for a long time you can't have Tex and Fogarty in the same team if you're going to play Fogarty out of a forward pocket. It's just not going to work, right? So if you're going to play Tex and Fogarty in the same team, you've got to play Fogarty high, and I think they did that for a large portion of the game, and I think that's one of the reasons he only spent 70% time on ground. But to my way of thinking, where it comes unstuck is Tex was obviously getting beaten. And what I would have done is actually rotated them at various stages and made the guy, I forget the guy's name that was on Tex, who was doing a really good job, taking him out of his comfort zone. Get Tex to come up the ground and get Fogarty to go back. That sort of stuff. There's not enough of that. Within our... Wilkie, that's right. Thanks, Joe Crow. Not enough of that in our coaching box, in my opinion, Macca. We don't see enough of that rotating through positions. We only had 4 or 5 players rotating through the midfield all night. Lockie Murphy has shown that he is a genuine midfielder. He didn't get one CBA. At our best, we had 6 or 7 players back in the day running through the midfield. All the good teams have 6 or 7 players running through the midfield. Right? We don't have that same rotation. McHenry, recruited as a midfielder. Why doesn't he have a CBA? Lockie Murphy, why doesn't he have a CBA? Why don't we get Geordie Dawson in there for a couple of minutes? Geordie Dawson, it's like, come back to Adelaide, Geordie, and we'll play as our cheap kick quarterback across half back. I bet he's excited about that, Rob. All he's doing is getting hit on the back of the head all bloody game every week.
Well, I agree. Look, I agree with you that we certainly should be mixing it up a lot more because the players, all the players you've nominated, have been midfielders in their day, and yet they don't get even one CBA. And if you put the more variety you put there, makes it more difficult for the opposition to predict what's going to happen. So I'm in favour of what you're saying.
Yeah. If we look at contested possession 128 to 127, so we matched them at the contest. Uncontested possession pretty even, 202 to 15. Turnovers were exactly the same, 69 apiece. Possession, we actually had more time in possession by a small margin, although if you have a look at the last quarter and the last 10 minutes, the last quarter St Kilda had 53% to 33% possession time. In the last 10 minutes, they had 44% possession to our only 15, so we just couldn't get the ball in the last 10 minutes. And it was noticeable, actually. I think St Kilda actually kicked 3 red time goals during the course of the game, Mac. So that's three goals.
You got 4 in the last 5.5 minutes.
Yeah, but also in the second and third quarter, I reckon they got red time goals as well. So
probably right.
We weren't concentrating, or we'd run out of puff or whatever, but they were able to get us at the death in each quarter. Marks 89 to 93, not a huge disparity. Marks inside 50, 10 to 14. Doesn't look like a huge disparity on paper, but again, we couldn't capitalise on the marks that we took. Contested marks around the ground, 12 to 15, so not terribly different. It wasn't really a marking game apart from Max King, to be honest with you. Tackles, we were up 55 to 41. That's that workman-like thing that Nixie bangs on about. Tackles inside 50 was good. Most of that was in the first quarter, 9 to 4. 1%ers, though, whatever that measure is, St Kilda way on top, 61 to 46. And if I just have a look at my little graph here, with regards to 1%ers, I bet you again that it will be, absolutely smashed. St Kilda 1%ers up until half time, Macca. 36 to 28 in their favour. And then it blew out during the third quarter all the way up to 49 to 33, ended up 61 to 45. So I could show you this graph. In fact, I will show you this graph just really quickly. And it will show you that you can see there the disparity in the second half in those 1%ers. So, So they certainly racked up the pressure in the second half, and in those key stats, if you look at the contested to possession stat, that was pretty even throughout. But those little 1%er stats and things like clangers, we actually did really well in clangers, to be honest with you, 74 to 50 in their favour. Clearances, certainly we did well in the clearance numbers, which is quite surprising. I'll switch that on as well. You can see the clearances there with the blue line there. So apart from halfway through the second quarter where it was fairly even, we certainly did better in clearances. If you look at breaking that down to stoppage clearances, we absolutely destroyed them in stoppage clearances, Macca. What's that? That's 27 to 15 around stoppage. And certainly in centre clearances, they did us in centre clearances 12 to 9. So relatively close. So, yeah, I just feel like tactically we lost the game, Mac, and kicking for goal. That's basically it.
Well, yeah, it's a game we should have won. There's no question about that. And if we had selected correctly in defence, if we had have made the most of our shots for goal, and some of those shots we got for goal, I made a list of the ones that I thought were terrible. I can't know whether I can find it now, but there were five of them that can't find the written this now, but there were five of them that you would just at AFL level say that's going to be a goal because it's dead set in front and you just got to run through the ball and kick it straight. And for God's sake, it just makes you really spew when you have a team that battles its bum off to get the ball down there, and then somebody's got it and they can't finish, and it must be so deflating to the players upfield.
Yeah, that's my biggest point. It takes the wind out of your sails, doesn't it, Mac? You work your guts out to get possession and get the ball into your forward line and get it into your hand of your forward, and then your forward lets you down, particularly on set shots. Running shots, they're always a 50-50 situation, but set shots, you've got no pressure on you in terms of opposition pressure. It's all about routine, Mac, and our blokes, for whatever reason, don't have that routine. I'm not going to go through every player's stats. We don't do that anymore, Mac. But let's just focus on a couple of players. Like Brodie Smith, for example, was our highest possession getter with a 28. 659 metres gained, and yet I found myself cursing him more than once because he just seemed to turn the ball over.
Look, I thought Brodie played a very good game, and the one thing that he did do, which is probably what you're referring to, he often seemed to be in doubt where to kick the ball, so he then always went for the long ball down the line.
Always.
And therefore you're kicking to a pack, and then it becomes a 50-50 ball.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my knock on Brodie Smith, that for all the length that he gives us in terms of territory and his long kicking and all the rest of it, he rarely kicks it to the advantage of one of our teammates. And the reason for that is because he's got a kicking action, a kicking style that just doesn't allow for that. It's not made for that. He's never actually going to be the sort of player. And I'll never forget that game. Was it against Collingwood in that final where he had to kick it to Seedsman down the line and he just kicked it behind him? That's Brodie Smith's bread and butter, that type of hooking kick. He never kicks it the right way. In fact, often his kick-outs are miskicks because he hooks them. But but it's just because he's got that slinging action that he's able to get good distance out of it. For all the good work that Brodie did, and he did a lot of good work, I agree with you. It was probably in our best half a dozen, I guess. He undoes it by just not kicking to advantage. And it really annoyed me on the weekend.
The only thing in his defence, though, Feen, he's got a lot of mates around him, and
but that doesn't excuse it, though.
As well.
That doesn't excuse it, though.
And at least he did get the ball. At least he did get the ball a lot.
Macca, that doesn't excuse it, though. It doesn't matter that it's absolutely irrelevant that he's got mates. If we're talking about Brodie Smith's game, he got it 28 times. His efficiency was about 70%. But he doesn't get a turnover stat when he kicks it to a contest or kicks it to the wrong side of a contest. And I reckon that stat would show that his actual effective kicks were probably down to about 10 out of 23 kicks, in my opinion.
Yeah. But as they say in the chat, they wonder whether he's instructed to do that because he does it all the time. He did it last year. So
but you can kick it long. You can kick it long, but still put it to the opposite. Put it to your teammate's advantage, though. I don't have any problem with him kicking it long, Mac. But put it to the advantage of the next player down the chain. Don't just kick it on people's heads or kick it behind them or kick it on the side where the opponent is. That's what he often does. He often wrong foots a guy, particularly when someone's leading to Brodie's right. Brodie will often wrong foot them because of his natural hook.
Yeah. I can't argue what you're saying about his kicking, but I still like the way at least the effort he put in getting the ball.
Yep. Speaking of effort for no reward, I thought Ben Keys was another that at times really frustrated me with his disposal. It's starting to become a little bit of an issue, in my opinion. He's got to be able to hit targets more regularly, Mac, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is a classic example of somebody who could. Nobody in the AFL gives any more than he does in getting the ball.
Yeah, and we love him for it.
But he burns it so much. But I have noticed, I reckon about 3 times at least in the game, he steadied himself and actually did a pass, which was I was delighted at. He's got a long way to go to make be 100% good with his feet, but great with effort and burns it too much.
Yeah. Don't forget, if you want to have a chat about proceedings, then stick your hand up. We've got Mick here, Mac, so we'll bring Mick in. Mick, whenever you're ready, you can pop in. Good to hear what you've got to say again, as usual.
It's always good for a chat, is Mick?
Always good for a chat. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. I'm at work again.
Yeah, you worked too hard, mate.
Yeah, that's good. Just a couple of things. Sometimes, Bean, you're a bit hard to follow. You say that we've got to have integrity in selection, and there's no way we could have selected O'Brien in any position the way he's been playing, and then say we've got integrity. Yes, I do think we should have someone taller. Really cost us, but I think if we don't play Macca this year, well, he's definitely a bust and a total waste of a pick. So we've got to do something with there.
My point with O'Brien, Mick. My point with O'Brien, Mick, is not to play him as a ruckman. If we'd have picked him as a ruckman, then yes, I think our selection would have lacked integrity. What I wanted him to play is a defensive role. A horses for courses selection that gives your team the opportunity to win the game of football.
Yeah, why haven't we got a defender that can do that? Like we picked a defender in pick 6. How do we know what he does? We haven't seen him on over 12 months.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And we preceded our discussion on O'Brien with exactly that question. Why wasn't Frampton picked? And if you don't pick Frampton, why wasn't Macca picked? Exactly. He's your gun pick 6 defender. So, I mean, the simple question is, are they on the scrap heap, those two?
Well, it's starting to look that way, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I know you give the big blokes time and all the rest of it, but I don't think they know what to do with Macca. He's not playing defence much in the sample, or they're playing him forward a bit. I don't know. I just think that's a bad pick, another bad pick.
Yeah, I'm starting to believe the same thing. And another thing I want to talk about before I leave is, we've been saying that we've got to pick a midfielder this next draft. It has to be a midfielder the best we can get. I'm actually thinking we can't afford to pick a midfielder. I think with our forward line the way it is, it's Walker or bust. And we need a strong marking, tall forward more than we need a mid at the moment.
Well, we probably need to develop the mids that we've got, don't we, Mick?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Saligo is coming along, and we can definitely see why we picked him. Yeah. And I've still got a lot of faith in Harry.
Yep.
And we still haven't even seen what Luke Pedler could do yet.
And don't rule out
with his development.
And don't rule out Zach Taylor either. I think Zach Taylor might surprise a couple of people too when he eventually gets a run.
I think Haitley played well again. Like, he didn't have a dominant game, but he saw as all wasn't missing.
I thought he justified his selection, Mick.
Yeah. So more than anything, we need a 200 centimetre strong marking forward. We haven't got one, and we haven't had a marking forward since. I can't remember our last one. Probably Sarge. I think he was the worst kick you could ever find anyway.
Yeah, but you can take a grab. Mick, that leads me on to a question.
no idea where it went after that.
Mick, that leads me on to a question I was going to ask a bit later, but we may as well address it now while you're here. I saw Logan McDonald play against Carlton on Friday night, and if ever you wanted a strong marking forward, a pure strong marking forward, he certainly played like that, even though he played, like, kicked 3-3. I think he had like 16 possessions or something like that. Took a ton of marks. I wonder, when we took Riley Thilthorpe, whether we actually understood what we were getting with Riley, because I don't think the club knows whether he's a strong marking forward, a running forward in the mould of Nick Riewoldt, or a ruck forward. Well, I was just going to finish up. To my way of thinking.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Keep going.
Oh, sorry. To my way of thinking, if they were recruiting for a strong marking forward, which is, I believe, what they should have been doing, then they picked the wrong guy.
Well,
Definitely.
I was definitely for McDonald at the time, and I thought when the way Thilthorpe started off last year, I was definitely wrong. But when I saw McDonald playing this week, I thought, Jesus, he's going to be a very, very good full forward.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Mick?
I think more than anything, Thilthorpe can be probably, in another year or two, he could start being a bit of an answer to our ruck problem. Even if he plays, 30-40% in the ruck, he's more than handy in the, around the midfield area, but he's definitely not a key forward. But I do think going through the draft selections and stuff that there is some South Australian 200-centimetre strong marking forwards in this draft.
Yes,
and
definitely.
We've got to make sure we get one.
Absolutely, I agree, Mick. I think Riley will end up being a very, very, very good player. And someone mentioned Luke Jackson in the chat. I think that's a very good comparison. I think in the end, I'm certainly not saying Riley Thilthorpe's a bust. He's got great skill below his feet. He's got good wheels. He's got lots of things. My only suggestion was, I just wonder whether the club knew what they were getting when they got it, because I think everyone's impression was that we were looking at a power forward, and certainly Logan McDonald shapes up, I think, as being that kind of a player, whereas Riley is a bit more versatile, I think. You could be right, he could end up being our ruckman. The other thing that I'd ask you, and people in the chat, is he the shortest looking 200-centimetre player you've ever seen? He just looks short to me for 200 centimetres.
I think it's because he's so agile, he's deceiving. And the way he moves, he doesn't look like a lumbering Riley O'Brien type that would fall over his own feet.
Yeah, it just he doesn't look that tall on the ground.
No, he doesn't appear to, but I think it's more to do with the fact he doesn't look like someone that could fall over his own shadow. More than he looks like he's coordinated, which is unusual. He's definitely not a pack marking, contested marking beast. That's for sure. Like, he's more run people off their feet and going up high on the ground and coming back, running back. That's more his style, more than being standing under the ball and doing a Ben King. That's not his go.
No, it's not his go.
We need to get someone. Because Himmelberg's a bust as far as I'm concerned. Like, he did a couple of good games, and then after that he forgot what that ball looked like. Yeah. We need someone that can take a good grab and kick goals. So they beat Walker. Yes, they did beat Walker. Because they could double team and triple team because the rest weren't doing anything.
That's right. Yeah, that's
right. And if we had another forward that was actually doing something with all those entries coming into the forward 50 in the first 3 quarters of the game, it wouldn't have mattered how many Ben King kicked, because they would have been so far in front anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we definitely missed butts.
Oh, 100%. We missed butts. But I think you're right. I think we're we need to get one of those young lads out of the SANFL. There's probably 3 of them, I reckon. Lemmy, Keeler, one other that I can't think of it right now. But yeah,
I think we've got one in our father's son or something too. That's in the 100 night.
193.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I'd be getting him
McElhaney.
and another one.
McElhaney.
I'd be getting 2. Yeah, I'd be getting 2 in case we have another bust. Like, at least there's a backup. Like, we've got to do something in that forward line because at the moment, our only truly good forward is going to retire in 2 years.
Yeah, Michael Annie's not playing as a forward.
He's a defender, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And he's as skinny as a run. He makes Lockie Gallant look like Arnie Schwarzenegger at the moment.
Oh, good God.
But we're all old enough to remember Jim Michael Annie. He wasn't a bad defender, was he?
No.
Anyway.
So we need. We know what we need. We need, 2 forwards, big forwards. I think because with the way that our selection was going, well, one of them's definitely going to bust anyway. So we might as well grab 2 and hopefully get one good one out of them.
Yeah. Tom Scully's the other one. Thanks, SC. Tom Scully's the other one that looks a real jet, I reckon. There's Lemmy, there's Scully, Keeler, I think. So, yeah, we've got to get one of those. You would think that we'll end up with about pick 4 before, all the messing around. So we should be able to jag one of them, I think.
I still think we'll win. We'll win another 4 to 5 games before the end of the year, so we'll still end up with our 8 to 9 wins. So I'm expecting pick 5 to 6, which is still a pretty high pick. And the way the rumour mill goes, we might lose Joel, which hopefully we get a decent pick for him. But I wouldn't be crying buckets over if we did lose him.
No.
He's showing a bit of development. Like he's got, I don't think his disposal is as good as it was when he first came in. And I think him and Atkins have had a bet on who can dodge the most physical contact.
I think you might be right, mate. Lockie Joel, I mean, a good player, but there, without any disrespect to Lockie, players of his type are a dime a dozen. And when you compare them to, trying to get some currency to get up the draft to get a key position forward or something like that, then it's worth a spend. We might decide that we've had enough of Elliott as well and get rid of him. I dare say, I don't think we'll be re-signing him. Well, I won't be very happy if we do. I just don't think there's any point anymore.
There are rumours that Carlton's interested in him, and with Carlton's happy knack of overpaying, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it will be interesting. All right, mate. Thanks very much for your contribution, as always.
I better get back to work. So
get back to work, mate. Good on you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah, I don't disagree with much that Mick said there, Mac. There are still a lot of holes in our list.
Mick's spot on. He's always pretty spot on, and the weaknesses he identified, I think we can all see they're there, and it's the big problem is how do you just solve those weaknesses? That's the problem. There's 2 ways probably going there. We can keep drafting away and hopefully get it right. If Dunkley becomes available at the end of the year, I think we should make a big play for him. Would you?
We won't have the currency. Yeah, I know, but we won't have the currency, mate. If we want to get up the draft and get one of these tall lads, or if we want to make a Godfather play for Horn Francis, we haven't got the currency to be going after Dunkley. And Dunkley's not coming over anyway.
His partner is actually living in Adelaide at the moment.
Yeah, and Sloane Ranger came onto our chat a couple of weeks ago, who would know, and said it's not an issue that she's playing over here, playing netball over here. He doesn't want to come to Adelaide.
But they've put contracts to, which he hasn't signed as yet.
Well, I mean, that's irrelevant. He's probably got plenty of suitors in Victoria, mate.
Yeah. Look, but the question is, if he was prepared to, would you burn your first rounder up to get him?
I mean, it would be a hard one to ignore if he was on the open market and expressed a desire to come to Adelaide. But I think you've got to be really smart about your assessment of your list, Macca. We've already spent a bit of coin on getting Geordie Dawson here.
Yep.
You know, you bring Dunkley in, that's a couple of picks and maybe a player gone. As Mick rightly pointed out, we're very, very light on key position players, and key position players tend to take a little bit longer. I'd be very careful about giving up draft currency at the moment. I really would. I think Dawson was worth the spend, but do we go to that well again? I mean, Dawson fell in our lap. You know, he decided he wanted to come to Adelaide. I don't know, Mac.
No, you know, the way I look at it, this is that Dawson cost us a first rounder, and you know what value, an enormous value.
Cost us two first rounders.
Was it two? Was it?
Well, it cost us a first rounder and then something else like a second rounder next year or something or other, from memory.
I thought it was just the one first rounder.
No,
I could be wrong.
More than one pick, I think. Anyway, go on.
But yeah. But the beauty of it is, I mean, he is real value, and he adds a quality to our team. And going by the way he performs every week, Dunkley's the same. He performs every week at a really high level, at a level that our players don't perform at. So all of a sudden you just add something extra that lifts the other players as well. So, but you know, that's just something to consider. But because you know we have burnt our first round draft picks before, Feen, and we've got nothing back for them really. There's probably about 3 of them I could nominate.
Yeah, boys in the chat backing you up. It was pick 18, that's right.
I'm not saying that we should do this every year, but if a player like that becomes available, I think you have to have a crack.
Yeah, I know, but I don't disagree with you, Macca, to a point. But I think you've got to have a look at the development. We spent a whole bunch of draft currency getting midfielders in, and a lot of them are just coming to the beginning of their careers. You know, Schoenberg, Sam Berry is really developing well. Jack Haitley is starting to show some good signs in the middle and could be solid. We've got Luke Pedler, who was a first round pick. That's got to come in there. We've got Braden Cook as well, who's looking positive for the future. We've got Zach Taylor as well. We've got Jake Saligo. We've got a lot of young midfielders. We've got Joshua Shelley, who could play some midfield minutes. We've got a lot of midfielders at the beginning of their career, and many of them have actually shown a little bit of promise. So I understand. I think if you were further into your rebuild and Dunkley was cream, I think you would do it. But I think where we are at the moment, there are too many components that we still need, Macca. And I think for what Dunkley would cost, I think I would pass.
Okay, fair enough. It's just put it up there. The Dogs definitely going to have a well, they'll be very tight in their salary cap this year, at the end of this year, and they've got quite a few players who will be asking for more money, and he could be the one that gets squeezed out. And because he did make an attempt to leave the club a couple of years ago as well, so it's not like he is bonded onto them. But that's the only reason why I raised his name.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he moved on. I think he'll probably if he comes to South Australia, it'll be Port, and I think he's more than likely to stay in Victoria because he's got some good connections there. Just before we wind up our little chat about the game, there's just a couple of names that I want to throw at you, just for a quick assessment of your your thoughts on their game. Jake Saligo, how'd you see him?
Loved his game. To me, he just showed, when you consider that, he was played in the first one or two games, and he was overwhelmed, and he came back last week. He came on, and he showed that he had something. This week he just went on, and I thought, look, he's as tough as a cat's head, and he'll have a real decent crack, and he can use the ball by either foot. Just game time is what he needs, and they must play him every week because he is going to be part of our future. He's going to be a good player for us.
100% agree with that assessment, Mac. He had 19 kicks, 19 touches or so, 355 metres gained. Couple of tackles thrown in there. Looks a hard nut, like you said. Doesn't get knocked off the ball. Doesn't mind going in and getting it. A pretty good shot for goal. A very, very, very promising game by Jake. Excellent. Jackson Haitley?
Yeah, I thought he justified his selection, I thought. He is a big-bodied midfielder. He's certainly strong enough, and I thought he's starting to play a little bit like he feels like he's belonging into the side. I think the other times when he's been played out of position, he's a bit apologetic about playing, but the last 2 weeks I've just thought that he's been given the opportunity to play the type of game that he used to play as a junior, and I think that if they keep persevering with him in that role, he could end up being very good for us.
Yep, agree. I think Jack Haitley and Sam Berry could be a very good 1-2 punch inside the contest. They had 17 tackles between them, Macca. Jack gets a little bit more metres gained than Sam, but I think if you put some cream and polish around Berry and Haitley, I think you've got a good combination. You get Harry back in form once he's sorted his off-field crap out, which I won't talk about. Get Luke Pedler up and running because he's got a little bit of burst and a little bit of dash about him. Jake Saligo, a bit of Geordie Dawson running on the outside. Who knows what happens with Miller, etc., etc. And I think that at the moment Jack Haitley is doing himself no disservice with the games that he's playing, and I'm really pleased to see it because I kind of got off him. I was very much a G for him in his draft year, and I kind of got off him, but he just wasn't being played in the right position, was he? As it turns off.
Well, they played him as a wing, and he's not a wing. He's a dead set on the ball.
Yeah. Someone in the chat talking about Shuey. I won't say any more than I agree with you. A day in the life. All right. Do we keep going with Kieran Strawn, or can we not ignore Riley O'Brien's 3,000 possession game in the twos on the weekend?
Look, I think the coach made a commitment to give Strawn 4 games in a row. He's played 2. I think he's got another 2 to go.
Yeah. Don't mind it. I reckon Strawny stays as well. Really like Will Hamill's game. What did you think?
Well, I thought he's got real good dash once he's got the ball, and he does generally use it very well. My fear with him always, of course, is because he's had concussion a few times, and he's one of those players that, like McCartan, that's going to be prone to getting it if they get a head knock. So I pray that doesn't happen to him, but because I thought he played pretty well.
Yeah, and it does offer a little dash off a halfback there as well, particularly this weekend because Chase Jones seemed to be a little bit down after he copped a knock. I don't know whether that was ribs or shoulder to Chase, but
shoulder.
It was shoulder, was it?
Shoulder.
Yeah, it looked like he was labouring.
Yeah, he gave away a freebie goal too, Joe. It's a shocking short pass. It cost us a goal, but
he's prone to doing that. But
he got hurt early, and I think that he soldiered on him, and perhaps he shouldn't have.
Yeah. So do we continue to play James Rowe, Lockie Murphy, and Ned McHenry in the same team?
Sorry, who are the three again?
James Rowe, Lockie Murphy, Ned McHenry.
McHenry's a lock for me. I would say Murphy be the one that I would leave out at this stage on form. But then again, having said that, Murphy, I think the times that they've actually put him on the ball, he hasn't gone too bad. So it's really hard to
clearances. It gets clearances, Murphy.
Yeah, I know. So if they were to give Murphy runs on the ball, I'd say that probably it's Rowie out. I used to be McHenry's biggest basher, but I'm one of his not fans, but I'm one of the ones who want him there all the time because he's just got that. If he does try his arse off, he's got a little bit of devil in him, and I think he's travelling okay. Not outstandingly, but he's travelling okay.
Those three are fighting for two positions, in my opinion, and I think the three of them should be basically rotating through those two positions. Personally, at the moment, I'd drop James Rowe and I'd push Darcy Fogarty up, and I'd bring in someone else for that small forward role, whether you try Tariq Newchurch or give someone else a run, maybe Gallant if you want to play a bit taller. But I wouldn't play all three. Ned McHenry, as much as he annoys the crap out of me in certain ways, I just have to admire his intensity. But then when you look at his stats, not too bad this week. He's been under 10 posies, but he had 16 posies, so he did what I asked him to do and get a little bit more of the ball. So I'd be certain. I'm probably happy with Ned's game. Lockie Murphy, if they use him around stoppage and maybe give him a couple of CBAs, I'd be happy for them to retain Murphy. Although, again, he had a problem with his neck, and that really, really bothers me. I know that they're saying that the scans are clear and all the rest of it, but he keeps having issues impacted with that neck, and I just wonder whether they need to give him a rest. James Rowe, we got him because he was a goal kicker, Macca. And yes, he's good up the ground, and yes, he's good with his kicks inside 50, etc. But we got him as a goal kicker. And to me, if he's not kicking 2 goals a game on average, then he's not the right player.
No, we actually don't really have any small really kicking 2 goals a game at the moment. That's the problem. It's not even just Rowie, but you're right. But the one thing I will say about Rowie, somebody's in the chat, he does have footy IQ. So that's the one thing in his favour.
But we can't keep the 3 of those blokes in my opinion.
No.
And yes, Rowe has.
I do agree with that. We're carrying one too many. The other thing too, I do think Rochelli's getting close to having a rest anyhow, in my opinion.
And that might save Rowe from
he actually dropped chest marks that he would never have dropped before.
Yeah. The issue that I've got, the reason why I say Rowe's got to go out is because we don't have a small crumbing forward at the moment, and that's Jimmy Rowe's role. And I understand that he's got good IQ and his inside 50s are good, and draws a lot of frees and all the rest of it. But what he needs to be doing is sitting at the feet of those bloody contested packs and sharking and kicking goals. That's why he's in the team. That's his primary function, and he's not serving that purpose at the moment. Razor says McAdam is not a small forward. He will get a shark and goal every now and again, but that's not McAdam's primary role. You need someone like a Stengel or a Betts or whoever, and whose primary role is to kick goals. The other knock on James Rowe is, unlike the other two, he doesn't offer anything defensively, Jimmy Rowe. And it's for that reason, Mac, that he would be the one that I would drop out.
Well, I can't argue against the defensive side of it, because that is his poor side of his game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So, Thilthorpe we talked about. Nick Murray, I think, stays in. I think he's just it was just unfortunate with selection.
Yep.
Rochelle, I agree with you. I think he needs a rest, Mac. Just looks a little tired, like mentally tired, I think.
Yep.
Like that one that he missed on the hit up where it just went straight through his hands and, hit him on the knee.
Couldn't believe it.
You don't see many of those marks dropped at elite level, so I just think he's a bit tired. So, look, I think there was a lot of reasonable performances, and I think if I was to make changes next week, I'd probably be thinking about, as I said, Rowe out, and maybe giving. The problem that we've got is we've got Geelong at Cardinia Park next week, and you don't want to be throwing a first gamer to the Wolves down there, in my opinion. So they may sit and hold. They may make the change of Rochelle if he's a bit cooked, but I don't foresee them making wholesale changes because I think they'll just try to bloody minimise the damage down there. I wouldn't mind betting that Nick's clogs it up and just makes it a slog like Port Tot tried to.
Yep, no argument for me, Feen.
Which is what we should have done in the second half, I reckon, Mac, against St Kilda. But anyway, all right. So that brings us, Macca, to our best players.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah.
And unfortunately, it's you first because you're the only one here.
Yeah, bloody Nicky.
No. Look, we're reverting to a 1+1 format now, Macca. Just me and one of you guys. So Nikki will get her turn.
I have picked that. Look, it was pretty hard because there was nobody played the perfect game. But in the end, I gave my 5 points to Dawson because I thought he was absolute value for kicks. His meters game were excellent as well. He also kicked a goal. If everybody was as much value for kicks as Dawson, we would be a formidable side, no doubt about that. He is our best player.
Agreed.
I gave 4 points to Smith in spite of the disposal aspect of it. I thought that he showed a lot of heart into getting the ball. He certainly played a team game in terms of effort to get the ball. And I think he had can't remember how many kicks he had, but he had a lot of kicks. And then he also gained a lot of distance as well with those kicks, but not necessarily using it as well as he should have. But I still gave him the 4. Ben Keys, I gave the 3. I thought Keysy, always outstanding effort. Tried to do a couple of better passes. Some of them came off, but again, a top effort. It got a little bit harder after that because I was tossing up between 2 or 3. I ended up giving McAdam 2 votes because I thought he was the one forward that actually fired, and I gave 1 point to Duday because I thought he struggled very manfully in defence.
Very good.
Soligo I nearly had in there, but not quite.
Very good. All right. Well, I don't think anyone could go past Geordie for 5 votes. He's certainly my 5-vote winner. I had Tom Duday as 4 votes. I just thought that in the situation that they were put in, I thought that he did as much as he possibly could to, get over the top of King when he could. I actually gave 3 votes to Brodie Smith for exactly the same reasons as what you said, Mac. Even though he frustrated the hell out of me, he did try or not. I gave Sam Berry 2 votes because I just thought, even though he didn't get a huge amount of ball, he's really developing inside the contest, and I thought a lot of his non-statistical work I thought was really good. So I gave him 2 votes, and I gave young Soligo 1 vote because I just really liked his game.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. As I said, I did toss it up myself. I ended up giving it to McAdam a vote, but it could have easily been Soligo.
Yeah,
I think
I wasn't.
once you get down to the last couple there, they could have gone anyways.
Yeah, I wasn't as enamoured with Keys' game as you were. I just felt like there was a lot of his first quarter was excellent. Right? He got a few clearances and he was breaking away from stoppage really well, but he just doesn't use it constructively. But anyway, we've talked about that. So anyway, that was my 5. People I've noticed have put their 5 in the Best and Fairest channel, which is great. I will update the tables and post them in our Discord channel under the Best and Fairest channel over the next day or two. We won't have our cockwomble because that's Nikki's thing. So when Nikki comes on, that'll be her thing, and she can have a cockwomble for 3 weeks worth of cockwomble when it's her turn to come on.
Or we could just say she's a cockwomble for not turning up, mate.
No, but she didn't not turn up, Macca. I told her not to turn up because we are only having a panel of 2 from now on the wrap. And that leads me into just confirming a couple of things about the wrap. Obviously, we're not doing Tuesday Night Live anymore. Thanks very much to Pete for that, but it's just become far too difficult for me and for Peter to continue to do a midweek cast. So better to not do it than to do it poorly. Pete will be on our rotation for the weekend wrap, so between yourself, Macca, Nikki and Peter, we'll have a different person joining me every week. So you guys get a bit of a break, and people get to hear a different voice apart from just mine all the time. And and that's the way we'll continue. There'll be a little bit more content on YouTube, just some pre-recorded content from Crowcast on YouTube as and when I get the opportunity and time to be able to do it properly. I don't think Scorpus has any time to do anything, Vardy. I'm sorry. We may get the odd Donkey Magoo appearance, depending on Donkey's schedule. But will definitely be Macca, Nikki, and Peter on a rotational basis for the rest of the season. I reckon we're just about done, Mac. The only other thing that I'll say is the giveaways on Ho Games tickets will still occur, but they'll occur on our Discord channel. So for those that aren't aware, we give away 2 general admission tickets at least every home game, and they are run by putting your name up in the tickets channel when they come up. So and we'll warn people on our socials, on Twitter, etc. when they come up. Matt, I reckon that's about it.
Okay, and we'll
played.
See you in a fortnight or 3 weeks, whatever, folks.
Well played. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thanks on Discord and also on YouTube. Don't forget, we are very grateful also to our patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much to our patrons for their ongoing support. If you want to support us on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast. But until next Sunday night, have a good week. Macca, take care, mate. And we will see everyone next week at 8:30 for the wrap. Till then, night, everyone.
Good night, all.